So fellas, since we've got a brand new pound for pound list in the UFC, I thought I'd go through every single fighter on the pound for pound list and predict the UFC career of each and every one of them. Some guys that are going to rise up, some guys that are going to fall off, and we'll start off at number 15 ranked, Charles Oliveira. It's obviously a sad time for Charles Oliveira fans having to witness him get knocked out brutally by Ilia Tapori, and he's now lost 3 of his last 5 fights, submitted by Makhachev, beaten by Surukian, and the most brutal one of all, getting knocked out cold by Ilia Tapori. He's now 35 years old, which isn't too old, but I think it's pretty safe to say he's never becoming a champion again. And even if Tapori does move to welterweight, which he's been hinting at for a long time, I see Surukian being a future champion at lightweight. I've been saying this for a long time, and I'm going to reference this future in this video. That I think Surukian's going to be the champion at lightweight, and I see Oliveira becoming like a win-loss fighter who's subject to fun fights. You know, matched up against maybe Max Holloway or like a Paddy Pimblett or Dan Hooker. These type of guys at 155, fun fights until inevitably retirement comes. So I think for Charles Oliveira, I think his career for the rest of his UFC career is going to be him being a bit of a win-loss fighter. Win a few fights, lose a few fights against fun opponents, and then leave the UFC. I don't think he's going to be here for another long title reign. I mean, he could potentially pick up a title reign, obviously, now that Makhachev and Tapori, well, Tapori's probably going to go on his way out and Makhachev's already left, but I see Surukian taking control of this division, and I think Oliveira's going to become a bit of a win-loss fighter. Stays in the top 5, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying he's going to fall off, but a bit of a win-loss fighter, win a few, lose a few, and then leave the UFC. At number 14, we've got Khamzat Chimaev. Now, Chimaev's obviously booked for a title fight against Dricus du Plessis, and this might actually be the most 50-50 hard-to-pick fight in modern UFC history. I have been going back and forth on my picks for this fight for so long. 1 minute I'm going with Chimaev, then I'm going DDP. Next week I'm going back to Chimaev, and then I finalize on DDP. So I feel like the only way I can really come up with this is like a spin the wheel, and it's telling me that Dricus du Plessis is going to win. So I've got to aim towards Dricus du Plessis winning this, probably via chosen one. So let's say Dricus du Plessis beats Khamzat Chimaev. Chimaev loses to DDP. He probably doesn't fight for the rest of the year, let's be honest. Chimaev's not really known for being the most active fighter in the UFC. He fights on average once a year, or at least that's been the trend for the past couple of years. And I feel like if he takes a loss, and it's probably going to be a war with DDP, he's not going to fight for the rest of the year. But I see him mauling every other contender. Outside of DDP, I really don't see there being any major threats to Chimaev in this division. Obviously, it depends on how he looks against DDP, and if he looks awful, then maybe I'll change my mind. But I see him mauling every contender in this division, apart from Dricus himself. So he likely scripts into the pound-for-pound rankings by the end of the year. So for Khamzat Chimaev, I do think he'll still be on the pound for pound list. I can't say what his career is going to look like in the long term, but I think in the next couple of years, at least this year, loses to DDP. No confidence in me saying that at all, but then comes back early next year, mauls another contender, gets back into title contention, and stays in the pound for pound top 15. Number 13, we've got Arman Surukian. Now, Surukian, like I said with the whole Oliveira situation, I think he literally beats everyone. If you match him against Gaethje, he's beating Gaethje. You match him against Pimblett, he's beating Pimblett. Holloway, if he beats Oliveira, if he beats Dustin Poirier, I think he beats him too. I think he beats everybody in the top 15 of the lightweight division, apart from Ilia Tapori. After watching what Tapori's been doing in the role that he's on, I've got to pick Tapori to beat Arman Surukian, whether it is by a vicious KO or even a close decision. I just don't see anybody beating confident Tapori at 155. But, like I said, Tapori's got his sights on the welterweight division. I don't think he's going to be at 155 for more than 1 or 2 defenses. And after he's gone, I think Surukian takes control of the division. He's going to beat everybody at 155. He is a future champion at 155. So I think for Surukian, he's a future champion, future top 5 pound for pound guy as a champion in the lightweight division. I really see Surukian taking control of this division. I think the only 2 guys I would favour to pick Surukian at 155 would have been Makhachev, and that wasn't even like a dominant win either. And obviously Ilia Tapori, again, not a super confident pick. Outside of those 2 guys, I see nobody beating Surukian. He's already taken on the next big threat in Charles Oliveira. So Arman Surukian, I think the future's bright for him outside of the Tapori fight. Number 12 in the division, we've got Belal Muhammad. Now, Belal Muhammad has obviously just lost to JDM in his first, well, what would have been his first title defense. He's now 36 years old. Again, similar to Oliveira, I don't think he's ever becoming a champion again. I think if he rematches JDM, Jack beats him in a rematch. I have no reason to pick Belal. I think Tapori could starch him. I think this is one of the more favourable fights for Tapori at welterweight. Brady probably beats him in a rematch. Brady's been looking amazing recently. I think Gary probably outpoints him as well. Elite takedown defense with decent striking. I don't know if I'd pick him to lose to Usman, but I think Usman's a bad matchup, and so is Shavkat. It's just so many sharks in the welterweight division right now, so I don't think Belal Muhammad's ever going to become a champion again. In fact, I think he's going to go a bit of a downfall. The only contenders I can confidently pick Belal Muhammad to beat with full confidence is Joaquin Buckley, because he just got exposed for having 0 wrestling, and maybe Michael Morales because his wrestling still, you know, fairly untested in this division. Apart from that, I think Belal Muhammad's future in this division is going to be on a bit of a downward slope, and I think he will retire within 2 years. 37 years old in the welterweight division. Belal doesn't strike me as the type of guy who's going to try and be here forever, especially if he can't can't get that belt back. So for Belal Muhammad, I actually think he's going to have a bit of a fall off. I'm not saying he's going to go on a massive loser streak like Tony Ferguson, but I think he will lose it to a lot of the top contenders, and he's going to kind of be like a Gilbert Burns. He'll be in the top 10 of the welterweight division, not able to beat any of the top elite contenders, but every now and then we'll pick up a win. But I think we're going to see a bit of a fall off for Belal Muhammad. Number 11 ranked, we've got Max Holloway. He's going to be fighting at the next pay-per-view. Now, Max Holloway obviously booked against Dustin Poirier. Very close fight, but the way that Poirier, you know, it's his last fight, he's probably not going to be focused on winning too much. I do think Holloway gets the win over Dustin Poirier, and I just think he's going to remain in the top 5 of the division for the rest of his career. Whether you match him up against Charles Oliveira next, which probably will be the case, that's a winnable fight for Holloway. That's a banger. Whether you match him against another banger fight in Dan Hooker, that's another winnable fight, or like a Rafael Fiziev or a Mauricio Hufe. Obviously, Ilia Tapori's already KO'd Holloway, so he's not becoming a champion, and I think Surukian would maul Holloway as well. But I just see Holloway keeping his place in the top 5 of the lightweight division, just similar to Oliveira, having fun fights, but not ever, you know, fighting for a belt again. He is only 33 years old, so I can't just sit here and say retirement, but he's been in the UFC for 13 years. His age doesn't really represent his time in mixed martial arts, and I do think retirement is on its way. It might not be this year, might not be next year. I feel like within a few years, the amount of damage that Holloway's taken and the fights that he's going to have, he will be gone within 3 years, but he's not going to have a fall off. He's going to be in the top 5 of this division for a long time. And again, he's only really losing to the best. Ilia Tapori, pound for pound number 1. Alexander Volkanovski when Volkanovski was on his dominant reign. So it isn't like I can necessarily discredit Max Holloway and say that he's washed or anything like that. I just simply don't see him becoming a champion. I think he's going to be similar to Oliveira, having these fun fights against top contenders, winning against most of them, losing when it comes to title fights. So I think Holloway's got a pretty bright career ahead of him, and I do think he beats Dustin Poirier. Number 10, we've got Alex Pereira. Now, Pereira obviously just lost to Magomed Ankalaev, and he's now 37 years old, which for a light heavyweight division isn't too old. For Pereira, I think he is going to take on Ankalaev in a rematch next, but again, I don't really know what his sights are on. There's been rumours of him moving up to heavyweight, but if he does take on Ankalaev, I am leaning towards Ankalaev winning that rematch against Alex Pereira, and I think if Ankalaev does win, his time will be done at light heavyweight. He won't really have his sights set on the belt at light heavyweight anymore. He's weighing about 243 pounds. I think if he loses to Ankalaev, or even before the fight with Ankalaev, he can move to the heavyweight division, and I'm going to be honest, I feel like people are overrating Alex's success at heavyweight. There's not many favourable options for Alex in the heavyweight division. Aspenel would absolutely maul him. Volkov and Almeida would probably maul him too with the grappling. Curtis Blades and maul him with the wrestling too. The only realistic matchup that I think he can probably beat in the heavyweight division is Cyril Gane. So I think unless he beats Ankalaev for the belt in the rematch, he likely loses his next few fights. I don't think he'd stick at light heavyweight for a long time anymore at 37 years old, having to cut all that weight if he's not fighting for a belt. And obviously, if he moves up to heavyweight, I think there's a lot of bad matchups in the top 5. Outside of Cyril Gane, I don't favour Pereira to beat anyone in the top 5 of the heavyweight division. So for Porton, unfortunately, again, similar to the Oliveira situation, I don't want to say this, but I think his best days are behind him. Obviously, if he goes out there and chins Ankalaev, it's going to be a different story. He's going to stay at 205 and likely clean up the rest of the contenders that he hasn't fought, but I don't fear him to beat Ankalaev, and I think it's either going to be him losing to Ankalaev, then moving up to heavyweight, or just him moving up to heavyweight next anyway, not having that much success. Number 9, we've got Tom Aspenel himself, the new heavyweight champion. There's just no competition for Tom Aspenel, you know. And now that John Jones has gone and Francis Ngannou coming over to the UFC, all the elite heavyweights have left. If you look at the division, he's already beat, there's literally no one there for Tom Aspenel. It's an absolute, you know, shithole right now. He's already beat 5 of the guys in the top 10 of this division. Cyril Gane, I guess that's probably going to be the fight to make next, because Cyril Gane's on a winning streak, and, you know, I guess it's the biggest fight he can do right now. Aspinall subs him in the first round. Him and Gelton Almeida. Gelton Almeida is a really good grappler, but he's small for the heavyweight division. Aspinall would chin him as well. Even like I said, Porto moved up to the division. I think Aspinall would absolutely bulldoze Alex in the heavyweight division. There is literally nobody else for Tom Aspinall to face. So my prediction for Tom Aspinall's career is he's going to finish every single opponent he has ahead of him, and he will stay unbeatable. Unless they can bring up over like a Francis Ngannou or maybe John Jones comes back, there's no competition for Tom Aspinall. And he's going to lap the division like Pantoja. What Pantoja is doing at flyweight right now, Aspinall's going to do at heavyweight. And he will retire as the greatest heavyweight, at least in the UFC. Obviously, you can argue Fedor, but at least in the UFC, I think Tom Aspinall will cement himself as the greatest heavyweight of all time because of the run that he's going to go on and the fact that there ain't going to be any competition for him. It's just all the big threats to Tom Aspinall has gone. I see him retiring as a GOAT. I don't see anybody even come close to beating Tom Aspinall, and I think he will retire as the greatest heavyweight of all time. Number 8, we've got JDM, the new welterweight champion. Now, obviously, he just beaten Belal Muhammad to become the champion. He's undefeated in the UFC, and there's nobody I really picked to beat him. Even Islam Makhachev, right, moving up to the welterweight division, this is probably going to be the next fight the UFC make. Dana White's already said that it's pretty much confirmed. He just needs a date, and it is one of the biggest fights you can do now that Tapori versus Islam Makhachev is off the table. JDM versus Makhachev next, but I've said this before, I think JDM beats Makhachev, not easily, but he's got a lot of factors in this fight. He's got the striking over Islam Makhachev, he's a big dude for welterweight as well, he's got the stamina, he's actually got better stamina than Makhachev, and he's an amazing anti-grappler as he just displayed. Now obviously Makhachev's got the wrestling and the submission ability, but I see this going, I don't think it's going to be an easy fight, don't get me wrong, there's no such thing as an easy fight when it comes to Makhachev, but I see JDM just picking him apart with the boxing on the feet, being a real tough test for Makhachev on the feet and defending most of the takedowns, not with ease, you know, not keeping the fight with a 100% takedown defense rate, but I see him keeping the fight standing and picking apart Makhachev. And even if, let's say, Tapori faces JDM, because we know Tapori's on a quest to become a champion in 3 different weight classes, this is a nightmare matchup for Tapori, a guy with equally as good boxing, maybe not equally as good boxing, but at least the best boxer in the welterweight division, who's also going to be massive compared to Tapori. And even the rest of the welterweight contenders, I don't favour any of these guys, whether it's Gary, Brady, Usman, Shafkat, to beat Jack Della Maddalena right now. I think he's a future top 5 pound for pound guy. JDM, even though he just battered Belal Muhammad, I still feel like he's underrated by fans. People are kind of looking at JDM as a stepping stone for Makhachev versus Tapori for the welterweight belt. I think JDM's going to spoil the trilogy, spoil the party. Beats Islam Makhachev, beats any other contender, and I'm not saying that with 100% confidence, like I said. I mean, previous to the Belal Muhammad fight, he got taken down by Burns, but he looked amazing in that fight with Belal Muhammad. He's he's a grappler's worst nightmare. He's looked really good and he's only going to get better. JDM, I think he's going to have a bright future. Number 7, we've got Magomed Ankalaev. Ankalaev might actually be the toughest one to call on this list. I really don't know what it's going to be with Ankalaev. I don't even know if he's going to face Alex next for the belt. And if he does, I assume he's going to win, but again, it's not with full confidence. He could lose his next fight and that wouldn't shock me. He could go to a long run in the light heavyweight division. That wouldn't shock me as well. Now, I do think if he ends up facing Yuri Prochazka, I think Yuri beats Ankalaev. Just the weirdness and the freakiness of Pereira Prediction on the feet, as well as the danger, and the fact that he's a much better grappler than a guy like Alex Pereira. I think Yuri's a nightmare matchup for Ankalaev at light heavyweight. Even like a Khalil Roundtree. I don't even know who to pick between Roundtree and Ankalaev at this point. Carlos Ulberg and Magomed Ankalaev. I'll obviously lean towards Ankalaev winning that fight, but I just have no idea about the career of Ankalaev. If it is him and Alex again, I assume he beats Alex Pereira in a rematch, but again, I can't really say that with full confidence because I could see Poatan chinning him. So my final prediction for Ankalaev is that a year from now, he won't be a champion. I think somebody will defeat Ankalaev. He won't be a champion, whether it's Alex or Yuri, but he will still be in the pound for pound list. Again, tough one to call. I could see him going on a long reign. I could see him losing his next fight. I just assume either Poatan will chin him, or at least Yuri will take the belt off Ankalaev and he won't be a champion in this division anymore. Again, not saying that with full confidence. He's one of the tougher ones to predict. Number 6, we've got Alexander Volkanovski. Now, Volkanovski obviously just had that really fun fight with Diego Lopez, and he's now the new featherweight champion of the world again. But he's now 36 years old, and I know he kind of broke the curse of not being able to become a champion at 35 years old and over in the lower weight classes, but let's keep in mind, he has been chinned in some of his recent fights, like the one with Tapori and Makhachev, and he was just dropped in the first round against Diego Lopez. Now, I don't think this is going to be a problem against some of the other contenders, like an Evloev, a Yair, Murphy, or an Allen. I think he probably beats all those guys. But there's been a match announced, Gene Silva versus Diego Lopez, and I'm leaning towards Gene Silva winning that fight. Gene Silva is terrifying for Alexander Volkanovski. I'm going to be honest, I think like Gene Silva, if he can get past Diego Lopez, the danger that Gene Silva, possesses, and the fact that he's such an elite striker, I think he finds the button on Volkanovski. So for Volkanovski, I think he will defend his belt this year against either Yair Rodriguez or the winner of Evloev and Pico. But eventually he's going to get chinned by Gene Silva. I think Gene Silva is going to be the guy to take away the belt from Volkanovski. Now, if Diego Lopez beats Gene Silva, I think it's good for Volk. I don't see Evloev beating him, and I don't really see any other contender in this division right now. So it really just comes down to can Gene Silva beat Lopez? I think he will, and I think he's going to dethrone Volkanovski. Yes, he looks good against Diego Lopez, but you got to keep in mind that he's still 36 years old. He's still getting old. There's still killers in this division, and he has lost 2 of his, 3, or whatever it is. He's lost by KO in a couple of his most recent fights. Number 5. Alejandre Pantoja. Now, Pantoja obviously just submitted Kai Kara-France with relative ease, and he is now absolutely lapping the flyweight division, and he just looks unstoppable. I don't see anybody beating Pantoja. Now, the fight to make next is obviously Joshua Van. Joshua Van versus Pantoja. Now, I will say this. I think Joshua Van is the toughest stylistic matchup for Pantoja in this division, but I'm still going to go with Pantoja to win. He looks unstoppable right now. There isn't a single man weighing at 125 pounds who I can confidently say beats Pantoja at this moment in time. And I just don't see anyone beating He's already said he's not going to move up and fight Morab, so you don't have to worry about him losing that pound-for-pound spot to a guy like Morab. And I do think he beats Joshua Van. This is a big step up pretty soon for Joshua Van to be knocked out by Charles Johnson a year ago and now facing the greatest flyweight of the modern generation. I think Pantoja beats Joshua Van, and then he just beats another contender. Whether it's Moreno, Part 4, Manel Cap, Tatsuro Taira if he beats Albazi, I don't see anybody beating Pantoja. I think he'll go down as one of the all-time greats, pound-for-pound top 3 at least. And maybe even a conversation to say that he overtakes Demetrius Johnson as not only the greatest flyweight of all time, but one of the greatest of all time, full stop. I really don't see Pantoja losing. I think he gets through Joshua Van again, not 100% confident because Van's on a roll right now. And if he can get past Joshua Van, I mean, he's already lapped the division. It will be him lapping the division again. So Pantoja, I feel like he's not, I don't think he's underrated. Everybody calls him underrated, so I feel like he's finally getting the respect he deserves, but I just don't see anybody beating this dude. I think he stays a champion at 125, and he'll only climb the pound-for-pound list and become even greater on the GOAT list. Number 4, Dricus du Plessis. Now, like I said before, I do think Dricus du Plessis beats Chimaev, probably by accident. I have no confidence in that matchup. And I think the winner of DDP and Chimaev will not lose to anyone. I truly believe that fight is the best versus the best in the middleweight division. We have got a number 1 contender fight between Imavov and Baralo, which I assume is going to be a title eliminator. Now, I'm leaning towards Imavov winning that fight, but it don't matter because Dricus beats both of them. So he's going to take on Imavov, let's say, in February of next year. That's usually when Dricus fights. And I think Dricus wins that one by banana peel as well. And then he's only going to climb the pound-for-pound list from there on. So, pretty simple prediction the next year for Dricus du Plessis. By the skin of his teeth, beats Chimaev, and then beats another contender. And again, I can't really speak about Dricus' future in the middleweight division because he's so unpredictable in every aspect of martial arts, but I assume he's going to be a champion a year from now. And if Chimaev beats him, I think Chimaev's going to be in the same spot as Dricus, probably top 5 pound for pound, doesn't lose to any other contender. Number 3, we've got Morab Dvalishvili. Now, Morab, again, similar to Pantoja, just looks unstoppable in the bantamweight division. To beat Aldo, Yan, Cejudo, O'Malley, Nurmagomedov, and O'Malley back to back to back to back to back, and he literally keeps getting better with every performance. The only threats to Morab in this division right now is a rematch with Umar, who hasn't proved anything since he's lost to Morab. You know, he's just been beaten by Morab, but he hasn't fought since there, and Morab's only getting better. And Corey Sandhagen, who notoriously struggles against grapplers. I only think Morab's going to climb the pound-for-pound list. I don't know who he's going to fight next. I assume it's going to be Sandhagen, and he beats Sandhagen, and then he's going to face Umar in a rematch. And even though that's probably the toughest test for him, I still think he beats Umar as well. From what I've seen, similar to Pantoja, I feel like Morab is going to completely lap the bantamweight division. He's already beaten all the top contenders there is, apart from Sandhagen, who I do think he beats. So, similar to Pantoja, Morab's going to climb the pound-for-pound list, lap the division, beat all the top contenders, and again, he's going to go down as the undeniable, not that he's not already the GOAT, but undeniably the greatest bantamweight of all time. And number 2, Islam Makhachev, the former pound-for-pound number 1 guy. I'm going to be honest now. You might not see this coming. I think Makhachev's going to have a bit of a pound-for-pound fall-off. I think Makhachev, not that his best days are behind him or he's washed or anything like that, but I think he's going to have a bit of a pound-for-pound fall-off. Like I said, I think he's going to fight JDM next. That's probably the obvious fight to make. And I don't know if he beats JDM. I'm leaning towards JDM winning that fight, and I've already explained earlier on in the video why. It's just JDM's got everything on his side. Amazing anti-grappler, cardio, size, striking. I'm picking JDM to beat Islam Makhachev, and it's likely going to knock him down a few spots. He's not obviously going to kick him out the rankings, but Makhachev losing to JDM will definitely deduct him a few points on the pound-for-pound list. Obviously, if Makhachev beats JDM, then he's not going to lose his pound-for-pound spot, but then he's going to have to fight Ilia Tapori. Obviously, that's a super fight in itself, and that's another tough test for what's his name, Islam Makhachev. But at this rate, confident Ilia Tapori, if he puts his mind to anything, he can achieve anything. And I'd be confident that Tapori could probably slump Makhachev as well. It's only terrifying fights now for Makhachev, and I don't think he's going to move down to 155. He's way too big for that division. For Islam Makhachev, I don't think he's going to be a champion a year from now. Obviously, in the future, that might be a different story, but in a year from now, in the foreseeable future, I don't think he's going to be a champion, but I still think he'll be pound-for-pound top 5, top 6, that area of the pound-for-pound rankings. I just think it's terrible fights for Makhachev. He's either going to have to face JDM, in which I think JDM wins, or he's going to face JDM, beat JDM, and then have to deal with pound-for-pound number 1, the most terrifying striker, terrifying fighter in the sport in Ilia Tapori. And I just don't trust that Makhachev beats both of them, never mind just JDM. So I think Makhachev's going to have a bit of a fall-off in the pound-for-pound rankings. Beats everybody else, apart from the 2 guys in his way. And then number 1 pound-for-pound right now is Ilia Tapori himself. Ilia Tapori owns the lightweight division. There ain't no threats in this division for Tapori. Surukian's the worst matchup. There's also Pimlet and Gaethje. Gaethje's just a punching bag. He's easy work for Ilia Tapori, just free money, and he'd absolutely chin Justin Gaethje. Paddy Pimblett likely gets chinned as well. I know the fight would sell, but I think Paddy Pimblett gets sparked by Tapori. And Surukian, difficult guy, but I think Ilia still likely beats him, whether it's by KO or decision. I think Tapori's going to beat 2 of these guys. I think he's going to get 2 defenses at 155, and then he's going to set his sights on the welterweight division. Now, again, no matter who wins between JDM and Makhachev, confident Tapori looks unstoppable right now, and I just can't see this guy losing. So I think by retirement, by the time he's retired, which is probably going to be 30 years old, he's going to remain the undefeated and pound-for-pound #1 guy in the UFC. He will become the first 3 divisional champion, and he will retire as the undisputed greatest of all time in mixed martial arts history, and he'll be gone, dipped by 2028. That is my prediction for Ilia Tapori. Now, if I do my pound-for-pound predictions, again, it's hard to predict the pound-for-pound list with how much shit goes on in this sport. I think it's going to look something like this. Movsarevil at number 15, loses his title fight but beats everybody else. Chimaev at 14, loses to Dricus, beats another contender. Arman Surukian at number 13, again, loses to Tapori, but beats every other contender. Magomed Ankalaev, he's going to lose his belt, but because he's already beaten so many guys in the top 10, he's going to stay on the list. Holloway at number 11, stays in the top 5, just doesn't win a belt. Volkanovski at 10, gets KO'd by Gene Silva, but because he's already beaten Holloway, he's going to be above him. Number 9, Yuri. I do think Yuri's going to be the guy to take away the belt from Magomed Ankalaev. I can see Ankalaev beating Pereira, and then Yuri not necessarily beating Pereira, but beating Ankalaev. So I think Yuri's going to be a champion. That's kind of a bit of a hot take I've got for that division. Number 8 anyway, Gene Silva. Yeah, this guy, I see him beating Diego Lopez, and I think he's going to be the guy to chin Volk and become the featherweight champion. Number 7, Tom Aspenel. It's hard to kind of rank him too high on the pound-for-pound list when there's no one good at heavyweight, but he's just going to keep doing what he's doing and ticking off these names. Number 6, Islam Makhachev. Like I said, probably going to have a bit of a pound-for-pound fall-off. Either loses to JDM or beats JDM, then loses to Tapori, but I think he's going to get knocked down to number 6. Number 5, I'm going with Dricus Du Plessis. If he beats Chimaev, he ain't loses to no one else. And then we've got JDM, Pantoja, Morab, and Ilia Tapori at number 1. All 4 of those guys, I just do not see losing to any other contender. So that's my pound-for-pound list. Those are my pound-for-pound predictions. Let me know your thoughts on if you agree with the predictions for all the fighters and the list itself. Let me know your thoughts. Thank you for watching.